It's a little bit sad when the authoritative sources stop pushing authoritativeness and they have headlines such as this: 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve world hunger, says director of UN food scarcity organizations. Now, notice Politico isn't stepping in, and other pro-censorship organizations don't decide to fact-check this. It's just being allowed to exist, even though any person that understands even the very basics about world events would know that this is absolutely ridiculous. The only reason CNN pushes articles such as these is to get people who are uninformed, uneducated, probably a very young audience who doesn't understand how the world works, in order to get them to hate the wealthy, in order to get them to hate the correct wealthy, because CNN itself is wealthy. People keep forgetting that CNN is a multi-billion-dollar organization. So the question would be, how much money do you donate, CNN? How much money do you donate per year in order to help end world hunger? Now, some might say, well, hold on a little bit. It's not CNN's fault. They're just parroting what the UN Food Scarcity Organization is saying. To which I would say, well, isn't CNN editorializing everything? Aren't they fact-checking everything? If I go and take a dump and a CNN reporter is there, isn't he going to editorialize my dump and say it's a far-right dump? Of course they would. Anyone who watches CNN knows that these people editorialize even when they sleep. So if they don't editorialize, then I assume they agree with it. Is it not a fair assumption, given on their track record? Of course it is. Now, what's interesting is that Elon Musk actually responds, because he's not like most other CEOs who are just quiet and take it, waiting for their ESG score to go brrrr. I just want to point out, Elon Musk, in my opinion, doesn't seem to be above criticism. I mean, any person that's in the public spotlight or any person that runs a business may at sometimes do questionable things. But when you look at the history of Elon Musk, I mean, this guy sold every single house that he had so that he doesn't own anything and is living with rent. Listen to the podcast that he had with Tim Pool. He actually said that he realized that too much money doesn't bring happiness. So, whether you believe him or not, it just doesn't sound the type of man that has the keys to ending world hunger, but he's like, mahaha, I'm not going to do it, mahaha. So, he says, if the WFP can describe on Twitter exactly how 6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell Tesla stock right now and do it. And by the way, do you know that the United Nations gets more than 6 billion in funding from various nation states? So by their account, they should be able to solve world hunger right now. They just don't want to do it, huh? Of course, the director of the UN World Food Program is calling CNN fake news. Literally, the first thing he does is to call CNN fake news. Thank you very much. Maybe you can tell YouTube because they think it's an authoritative source. Maybe you can call PolitiFact and other pro-censorship organizations and let them know that they're asleep on the job. CNN is pushing misinformation and they're asleep. They're like the sleeping giants, aren't they? So then he says 6 billion will not solve world hunger. Wow, no fucking shit. But it will prevent geopolitical instability, mass migration, and save 42 billion people on the brink on starvation. An unprecedented crisis and a perfect storm due to COVID, conflict, climate crisis. So because governments around the world are locking down businesses, they're telling people they can't go to work, they're disrupting supply chains, and they're doing all of that because nation states are doing all of that, Elon Musk has to cough up $6 billion. And by the way, Elon Musk's factory was also locked down during all of this. So maybe they should have asked Bezos or Pfizer. Yeah, ask Pfizer to donate some vaccines. Ask Pfizer to give some money. Oh no, they can't. I mean, those are the good billionaires. Those are the good people. Elon Musk is the bad person. Why? Well, because he doesn't do the talking points. Because he doesn't try to raise his ESG score. He doesn't take pictures with Greta Thunberg. No, he just makes electric cars. And because he just makes electric cars, well, it's not good enough in 2021. He's responsible for the famine in Africa. And by the way, this is the reason you have world hunger, which is mostly located in Africa. Part of it is because the Chinese and other nations are buying arable land. They're buying the farmland from there. And the corrupt government officials are selling the farmland So there's less food for the people, that's number one. Number two, there are places in Africa where the soil isn't fertile. You have the tsetse flies, so it's very difficult to actually have any animal livestock. You have many people there pushing for socialism, which is an authoritarian ideology concentrating the power in the hands of a few people who are now not impossible to be held to account by the people. They're obscenely wealthy. While their people are starving, their leaders are buying a Batmobile for their kid. Actual Batmobiles. I mean, you can't imagine how obscenely wealthy these people are. And when you send aid to a country, guess who manages to decide where that aid is going? Yes, it's the obscenely wealthy people. So major class disparity. And then, of course, you also have in some places various conflicts, guerrillas, people who are fighting against these rich individuals in some cases. In other places, it's just pure ideology. Religion plays an important role. What I'm trying to say is that just throwing money at the problem, just pumping money at the problem isn't going to make the problem go away. Because the problem isn't so simple. There are so many factors creating the problem, and many of them cannot be solved by just paying people off. I mean, what are you going to do if you have a guerrilla that's trying to rise up against their tyrannical government? Do you pay the guerrilla off? How do you even do that? Why do you think the government in that nation would even allow you to do that? If China buys farmland, what do? Do you buy it back from China? What if they don't want to sell? The only thing you can do is to try and bypass all of this corruption, which is also not impossible, to make sure that you're just bringing food packages to the villages that are starving. That's the only thing you can do. And by the way, the UN is trying to do that, and the Elon Musk puts a very interesting link, what happened here. And it's a newspaper article with a very fascinating headline saying, starving children as young as 9 forced to give UN officials oral sex to get food. And if you happen to follow the UN, then you will know this is not the only time they're being accused of similar things. But for some reason, they don't have the reputation of the Catholic Church. I don't know why that is. You get to figure it out. But when the Catholic Church does it, then people actually get outraged, and the stink manages to stick on the Catholic Church, as it should. As it should to any organization that is caught doing things like that, right? Like hiding child molesters and pretending it's not happening. But when the UN does it, very few people know about it. Although it's in the news. Like you can just Google it and you can find event after event after event. And how they deal with whistleblowers and how they try to make the whistleblowers go away. Yeah, they do that. Now I have to say, when I first read the article though, about the UN peacekeepers giving food in exchange for oral blowjobs, I was shocked to the very core. I, as a human being, was shocked to the very core. I was like, how can that happen? The most defenseless people on the planet? Like, what is more defenseless than a starving 9-year-old? What on earth is going down there, right? So the normal, healthy reaction from a person is either utter disgust, or maybe you just don't believe it happened. Maybe you're like, no, this can't possibly be happening. Fake news. They're trying to shame the good prestige of the UN. So maybe that is a way to tackle it. But you have Twitter, where people are normal. Keyword is normal here. And Twitter is just the place where neurons go to die. And you see people that aren't denying it. They're not saying it's like, okay, well, that's fake news, clearly. No. What they're saying is like, so you're just avoiding giving 2% of your wealth to help 42 million people. In other words, just give more money to that organization, you bigot. Shut the fuck up. Give them more money. Otherwise, you're a bad person. And they also point out, it's like, oh, look, at Tesla, there's also talks of discrimination and whatnot. It's like, yeah, but Tesla isn't an organization that's supposed to help women, right? I mean, if something bad happens, there are the cops. I'm pretty sure that justice will be done, but I'm not giving money to Tesla so that women are helped. I'm giving money to Tesla to buy a fucking electric car. And you have tweet after tweet after tweet of whataboutery and go, it's like, yes, but things are bad at Tesla. And maybe they are, I'm not saying, but they're not asking for money from other people. They're not trying to get money to help people. They're trying to get money to sell you an electric car. I just don't understand. It's like, okay, so you should give money to the organization which has the worst track record imaginable, And by the way, nothing that Tesla does can even remotely compare to what I've read. And these people aren't even trying to deny it. I just, no, seriously, Twitter is the place where human neurons go to die. It's the graveyard of neurons. But, you know, like, donate more money to them. I'm pretty sure it's going to go to the right places. So now you finally have, like, the proof of how the $6 billion would be spent. And apparently, it's going to avert the famine. Now, they don't say how long it's going to avert the famine. I think it might avert it for like 1 year, but then who's going to pay the next $6 billion? Like, Elon Musk actually has to sell his stock in order to pay for this $6 billion, right? So next year he sells more stock. Until when? Like, how is this solving world hunger? Because that's what we started talking about, solving world hunger. And now it's not the world, now it's just Africa. And now it's not solving it, now it's just making sure it doesn't happen for the next year or so. And of course, look how much money do the bureaucrats at the UN get from this package deal. They will get $400 million for global and regional operation management, administration, and accountability. So bureaucrats, okay? Bureaucrats are going to get $400 million. They're also going to get $700 million for country-specific costs to design, scale up, and manage. People in suits in boardrooms doing all of this, doing paperwork. That's how much money is going. So none of this money is going to actually feeding the children. And by the way, from 6 billion, now we moved all the way up to 6.5. 6.6, my bad. 6.6. So from 6 billion to end world hunger, we have moved to 6.6. And from the world, we only moved to Africa. And we're not solving it. We're just feeding a couple of people for a couple of months. So this isn't actually broken down. But I'm really curious, like, how much of the $6.6 billion legitimately puts food in people's mouths? Like, taking away what the people in the boardrooms have to do and what the people in the logistics and the transport, like, all of that, like, how much food does the money, like how much food could you buy with $6.6 billion, and how much food do you actually put into the mouths of people in Africa? And for how long? Like, that's what I would be interested. And this is why Elon Musk knew exactly what he was doing when he asked these things. But it is what it is. You know, you get to decide and you get to judge if Elon Musk has the keys to ending world hunger and if he's just such a selfish motherfucker for not doing it. And you get to decide if the UN is the charitable saint in the room who just wants to solve world hunger and is really upset that people like Elon Musk aren't giving money and empowering them further. And by the way, as I mentioned before, lockdowns in the first world has caused really bad times for the people living in the third world. Has the UN said anything about it? Have they complained a little bit? Were they pro or against it? Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.